This is Riverside Radio.
Now, as we heard earlier, almost 10,000 Teddington residents have signed a petition opposing plans proposed by Thames Water that would see sewage pumped into Teddington Weir. Now, tens of millions of litres of treated sewage could be pumped into that lock from the Mogden sewage works in West London, and Thames Water, as they have said to us, insisted that the plans are needed to tackle future water shortages and have ensured that the plans are safe and necessary for London's future water supply. Now, a public consultation into the proposals closes on the 21st of March, and someone else who is taking interest in this issue is the Twickenham MP, Munira Wilson, and our reporter Lucy Sadler spoke with her earlier about these plans and began by asking her why there has been so much public opposition to them.
I think it's mainly because there has been very, very poor communication and engagement in the initial stages from Thames Water. So these plans came out of the blue, and they really only came to light to both elected representatives such as me and my neighbouring MP colleague Sarah Olney, and indeed local councillors, but also the wider public, through press articles that were published in January, and they happened to be published a few days before a public consultation event, which not many people knew about. So I think the main concern has been driven by the lack of information and transparency, and that's why the main thing I've done since these proposals came to light has been to push Thames Water very, very hard to engage better with the public. And I've just, in fact, come from the Thames Water public consultation event in York House that's taking place today between 2 and 8 p.m. And they also hosted a webinar for local residents on Monday of this week. And I know that there were about 250 questions that were submitted as part of that webinar. Clearly, they couldn't answer all of them, but many of them were on a similar theme.
So do you think it was a case of Thames Water basically just trying to sneak in the plans and hoping that nobody would notice?
Well, it certainly feels that way. I mean, obviously, Thames Water say that that's not what they're doing, and that they had sent out some information back in December, but it hadn't hit anybody's radar. It feels like it was probably buried somewhere in a whole, other list of things that they were looking to communicate about. There's never, until those press articles came to light, and we pushed for further direct engagement on this scheme's proposal and the events we've had this week, there wasn't this very specific targeted engagement with both elected representatives but also the local community on the Teddington abstraction scheme. And I'm pleased that they've woken up to that. They've now appointed a dedicated community engagement manager specifically on this scheme. And we've got these events, and we've heard today, because I and councillors were pressing Thames Water representatives just now, that they will be doing further consultation as their work progresses on this scheme.
This is only like in the case of drought will the sewage be kind of deposited, and Thames Water are insisting that the sewage will be treated and will be safe. So maybe some people might say, what's the fuss if it's only going to be a few times a year and they're insisting the water is going to be safe?
That's a legitimate question, but I guess to be able to answer that question, people want reassurances. And so what this process is about is to get those assurances around, as I say, the human health impacts, the environmental impacts, biodiversity impact, all of that needs to be looked at in the round to reassure ourselves that it will be either neutral or indeed net positive environmentally for the river and for the surrounding area, but also that there are the checks and balances in place. And I think fundamentally what is at the root of a lot of this concern is there is a serious, serious lack of trust between the public and Thames Water. Why do we have that lack of trust? Because we see so much raw sewage discharged into the river so frequently. So I've got some numbers here that in 2021 there were a total of 529.6 hours of sewage discharges into the River Thames along the Twickenham stretch of the river alone from Mogden. That's huge. 529, almost 530 hours of sewage discharges in 1 year. The fact that people can see leaks all over the place, quarter of the water that Thames Water has is lost through leaks every day. People want to see that they are actually taking robust action on those issues. And because they don't see that, and they see these constant breaches in terms of sewage discharges, there is a serious lack of public trust. And I and councillors have spelt this out loud and clear to Thames Water, that to be able to build the trust that if they think this is a safe and effective and reasonable scheme in times of drought, there's a huge amount of trust they've got to build with the public to reassure them that this is safe and that it is okay. And the jury's still out. It's far too early days, I think, to take a strong view one way or the other. I think it's perfectly legitimate for people to be raising concerns and asking a lot of questions at this stage.